Valentina Tres Palacios loved music the way some people love breathing. It wasn't just something she played, it was something she lived inside. At just 21 years old, Valentina was already carving out a place for herself in Bogotá's nightlife scene. She wasn't chasing fame for the spotlight alone. She was chasing connection, the feeling that came when a room moved together, when sound erased distance, when strangers became something like family for a few fleeting hours. She was a DJ. But before that, she was a daughter, a friend, a young woman still figuring out who she could become. Those closest to Valentina described her as warm, expressive, and deeply emotional. She laughed easily. She loved fiercely. She trusted people, sometimes more than she should have. Music gave her confidence, but relationships gave her meaning. She wanted to be loved, to be chosen, to feel secure in a world that often feels unsteady for young women finding their way. Valentina grew up surrounded by creativity. Music wasn't a phase. It was a language she learned early. By her early 20s, she was performing regularly, networking, dreaming bigger than the room she stood in. She had been an active and recognized DJ in Colombia's electronic and guacha scene for years, performing at clubs and music events across the country. She documented her career and performances on social media, and had developed a solid fan base. January 2023 felt like a turning point. She had opportunities ahead of her, plans forming, a sense that something more was coming. And she wasn't alone. Valentina had been dating John Nelson Poulos, a 36-year-old foreigner she had met months earlier. To outsiders, it looked like a relationship built on excitement, travel, nightlife, intensity. But beneath the surface, there were cracks, age differences, control, jealousy that masqueraded as concern. Still, Valentina believed in people. She believed conversations could fix things, that love could be reasoned with. On a warm January night, Valentina stepped into Bogotá's nightlife once again, dressed for the music, the movement, the moment. She had no way of knowing that the trust she carried so naturally would soon place her in unimaginable danger. Later that night, surveillance cameras would record Valentina entering an apartment in northern Bogotá with Poulos. The footage is ordinary, unremarkable, two people walking inside. What it does not show is Valentina ever leaving. And at that moment, when the door closed behind her, the future she was building quietly vanished. The city kept moving. The music kept playing. But Valentina Tres Palacios would never walk back into the night again. From the outside, Valentina Tres Palacios and John Nelson Poulos looked like a modern cross-border relationship shaped by travel, technology, and shared time between cultures. But relationships are rarely defined by what they look like from the outside. They are defined by what happens in private. John Nelson Poulos was significantly older than Valentina. 36 years old, American, financially stable, and able to move freely between countries. He presented himself as attentive and invested. Someone willing to travel. Someone serious. At first, that attention felt affirming. Friends later recalled that Valentina spoke about the relationship with cautious optimism. She didn't rush it. She didn't romanticize it publicly. But she believed in connection. And Poulos appeared to offer stability in a life that was otherwise fast-moving and unpredictable. Still, subtle tensions existed. Their lives operated at different speeds, different expectations, different emotional rhythms. Valentina was young, independent, and deeply immersed in her creative world. Her nights were late. Her schedule was fluid. Her sense of self was rooted in autonomy. Poulos, by contrast, showed signs of needing control, not overtly at first, but persistently. Messages that required immediate replies. Questions framed as concern. Emotional reactions that escalated quickly when expectations weren't met. This wasn't visible to everyone, but it was felt. Control often hides behind language that sounds like care. protection, commitment. Over time, people close to Valentina noticed changes. She seemed more guarded, less spontaneous in certain conversations, as if she were constantly balancing reassurance against independence. And that tension followed her into January 2023. By then, Poulos was in Colombia. The relationship had entered a more volatile phase. Prosecutors would later describe his emotional state during this period as increasingly unstable, driven by jealousy and fear of abandonment. Valentina, meanwhile, was still moving forward, still working, still performing, still building her future. There is no evidence that she anticipated violence, no reports of threats, no public warning signs that pointed to what would happen next. But there were fractures, small ones, beneath the surface. On the night she disappeared, Valentina did what she had done countless times before. She went out. She engaged with the city. She existed in the world on her own terms. And then she crossed back into his. Surveillance footage later confirmed that after spending time in Bogotá's nightlife scene, Valentina and Poulos entered an apartment in the northern part of the city together. There was no visible struggle, no sign of distress, just two figures moving inside. That moment matters, because it establishes proximity, because it narrows the timeline, because it marks the final known point where Valentina was alive. What happened inside that apartment would not be witnessed by cameras, but the aftermath would leave unmistakable traces. Prosecutors would later argue that what unfolded was not spontaneous, that it was driven by escalating emotional instability, rooted in jealousy and control, that the violence occurred behind closed doors, unseen, unrecorded, and irreversible. And while the city outside continued moving, traffic lights changing, clubs closing, dawn approaching, Valentina's life came to an abrupt end. But no one knew that yet. Hours passed. Valentina stopped responding. Her absence began to register. And for the people who loved her, silence became the first signal that something was terribly wrong. January 2023 in Bogotá moved the way it always does. Loud and crowded nights. For Valentina Tres Palacios, those nights were familiar. She navigated them with confidence, surrounded by music, lights, and people who recognized her not as a victim, but as a presence. In the days leading up to her death, nothing outwardly suggested she was in danger. There were no distress calls, no emergency messages, no indication that she believed her life was at risk. Her routine continued. On the night she was last seen alive, Valentina went out into Bogotá's nightlife scene. Surveillance footage and witness accounts later confirmed she spent time moving through familiar venues, places she had visited many times before. At some point during the night, she met up with John Nelson Poulos. What they discussed, what they felt, what tensions existed between them in those hours. None of that is recorded. What is recorded comes next. Security cameras captured Valentina and Poulos entering an apartment in northern Bogotá together. The footage shows no visible argument, no hesitation, no one forcing anyone else inside. It looks ordinary. That ordinariness is deceptive, because it is the final confirmed image of Valentina alive. After that moment, her digital footprint stops. Her phone goes quiet. No messages. No calls, no activity. Friends and acquaintances begin to notice the absence. For someone as active and connected as Valentina, silence was unusual. It wasn't like her to disappear without explanation. As concern grew, investigators began retracing her final known movements. That process led back again and again to the apartment, and to Poulos. What happened inside the apartment was not captured by cameras. There were no eyewitnesses. But prosecutors later alleged that during that time, Poulos attacked Valentina in what they described as a violent outburst fueled by jealousy. They would later state that she was beaten and suffocated. No graphic details were released. No public reconstruction of the act itself. The focus would instead shift to what followed. Hours later, security cameras in the building recorded Poulos again. This time he was alone. The footage shows him pushing a cart. On it sits a large suitcase. It is heavy enough that he moves slowly, deliberately. The wheels strain slightly as he maneuvers it through common areas. The camera does not show what's inside, but investigators would later confirm that Valentina's body had been placed there. This footage becomes one of the most critical pieces of evidence in the case, not because of what it shows directly, but because of what it implies. After leaving the apartment, Poulos does not contact authorities. He does not report an emergency. He does not seek help. Instead, he leaves Colombia. In the days that follow, Valentina's body is discovered inside a garbage container. The location and condition confirm investigators' worst fears. By then, Poulos is already gone. The case transitions rapidly from a missing person investigation into a homicide inquiry. International alerts are issued. Authorities determine that Poulos fled Colombia and crossed into Panama. His movements become a race against time. Cell records, travel data, and border documentation begin to form a trail, one that leads out of the country, away from the crime scene, and toward accountability. For Valentina's family, the discovery is devastating. The questions they feared are answered in the most final way possible. For investigators, the priority becomes capture. Because the evidence left behind, the surveillance footage, the timeline, the suitcase, all point in one direction. And now, the man at the center of it all is running. Once Valentina Trespalacio's body was identified, the investigation accelerated with a single objective: find John Nelson Poulos. Colombian authorities quickly determined that Poulos had left the country shortly after Valentina's death. Border records showed he crossed into Panama, triggering an international alert. His departure was not subtle. It was decisive. To investigators, it looked like flight. Interpol notices were issued. Colombian prosecutors coordinated with Panamanian authorities, sharing surveillance footage, timelines, and forensic findings. The evidence already collected, especially the apartment security video, framed the case clearly. This was no longer about what might have happened. It was about where Poulos went next. On January 24, 2023, Poulos was arrested in Panama. He was detained while attempting to move again, effectively ending the manhunt. His capture came less than a week after Valentina's body was discovered. He was extradited back to Colombia to face charges. From the outset, prosecutors framed the case as aggravated femicide, a charge reserved for gender-based killings marked by violence and power imbalance. They argued that Poulos' actions were driven by jealousy and control, culminating in a lethal attack. The defense did not dispute that Valentina died in the apartment. Instead, they challenged intent, attempting to cast doubt on premeditation and emotional state. But the physical evidence told a different story. Security footage showed Poulos calmly transporting the suitcase. Digital records confirmed his movements. The timeline revealed no effort to seek help, only steps taken to conceal and escape. The trial unfolded under intense public scrutiny. Valentina's case had struck a nerve across Colombia, sparking conversations about violence against women, accountability for foreign offenders, and the vulnerability of young women navigating relationships marked by imbalance. Throughout proceedings, Valentina's family remained present. They did not speak often. They did not need to. Her absence was enough. When the verdict came, it was definitive. John Nelson Poulos was found guilty of aggravated femicide, as well as crimes related to the concealment, alteration, and destruction of evidence. The court rejected arguments that minimized responsibility or reframed the violence. He was sentenced to more than 42 years in prison. The ruling acknowledged not only Valentina's death, but the broader context in which it occurred, recognizing femicide as a systemic and urgent issue. For Valentina's loved ones, the sentence did not bring closure. It brought finality. Valentina Tres Palacios was more than the final moments captured on grainy security footage. She was a daughter, friend, a DJ who built her life through sound and connection. Her story does not begin with violence, and it does not end with a sentence length. It lives in the conversations her case forced, in the awareness it created, and in the reminder that behind every headline is a human life, vibrant, complex, and irreplaceable. The camera footage fades, the courtroom empties, but Valentina remains. And remembering her, fully honestly, is its own form of justice. If you found this case fascinating, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. We post crime case videos every night. Until next time, stay sharp, stay vigilant.